Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Dr. Margaret Swank, the Chief of the OSI Employee Assistance Services. Dr. Swank, welcome to the program. It's so good to see you as always.
Oh, it's great to see you too.
Now, obviously, we're going to be talking about, what we said, off mic, the elephant in the room about COVID-19 and how it affects OSI, the whole nine yards. But before we get into that part of the interview, I did want to kind of set the stage a little bit for our listeners who may not be familiar with Employee Assistance Services. So in layman's terms, what is it and what is it designed to do?
Well, that's a great question. To be honest, when I first, so I left the Navy in 2008 and I transitioned into a civilian position in employee assistance as employee assistance counselor. And I'm like, what is this? I don't know. It says counselor. I'm sure I can do it.
Right.
So I quickly learned it stems originally, it started even prior to 1986. But in 1986, Ronald Reagan put forth an executive order on the drug-free workplace. Mm-hmm. And we're all pretty familiar with the drug-free workplace in that we're not allowed to take drugs at work and things like that. But a big part of it was him saying, so, hey, we as a federal government, we as the employing agencies need to step up and provide services to people to make sure they've got the support that they need to handle the stress on the job and to avoid, using substances, falling into addiction. And I think particularly in the environment we work in now, in the intelligence community, where it's not just your work behavior that's under scrutiny, it's your home behavior, it's your financial behavior. All
so really
that is huge. Yeah, and so a lot of people think psychologist, okay, it's mental illness. You only need to come in if you're depressed or anxious or PTSD. Mm-hmm. In reality, all those things you have your medical insurance for, right? You go to the doctor. This is non-medical. This is, hey, I'm frustrated with my boss, because you can't send that to Medicare for billing, right? Or I'm getting annoyed with my colleague. How do I deal with these issues before it becomes full-blown isolation from the team, which then metamorphoses into depression and so on and so forth? So that's kind of the niche that the Employee Assistance Program fills. Mm-hmm. Of course, in this kind of setting, we also do crisis incident response. So if there's a large-scale event or a really gruesome event, we might do preventative services for people who are exposed to a lot of violence and gruesome material, just to kind of make sure that stuff doesn't build up. But all that falls under the Employee Assistance umbrella.
Wow, that's kind of a big umbrella, that's for sure. Now, as far as your background, Dr. Swank, a little bit, how does your dual-hatted background as a licensed clinical psychologist and an accredited financial counselor tie into your responsibilities as the chief of OSI EAS?
Sure. Well, again, when I first came into employee assistance, I was not used to such a sort of general model that really addressed everything that might lead to stress in your life. And the top three stressors, for example, in couples are sex, money, and kids, right?
There you go.
So I learned about parenting. Right. Learned about parenting, learned about sex. I needed to learn about money. So when I joined the FBI EAP back around 2009, I decided to get that extra accreditation because I really didn't have a lot of training in finance, money, budgeting, and things like that. So it just gave me the added confidence to know that I could provide that service to people. Many times people will say, oh, hey, I know I've got this financial disclosure form coming up and I'm a little bit worried, might my spending behavior, reflect negatively on that? Or I like to play the lottery. Do you think this is becoming a quote unquote gambling issue? And so that definitely helps with that too. It's, for the military, I think the military world thinks, well, we've got Airman Family Readiness for that. At Airman Family Readiness, you've got your military family life counselors, you've got your personal financial counselors. So in the civilian world, the employee assistance programs offer those kind of similar resources.
I see. Very good. Is it kind of fair to say it's almost kind of like a one-stop shop under EAS where all those different types of potential problems can be addressed?
Yes, and I'm just one person, right? So when I say one-stop shop, I'm a great place to start. So even
Right.
if you're out in Korea and your issue is, this is what I'm struggling with, where can I go?
Yeah.
Then at least we can have that conversation
Sure.
and I can outline the options.
Right.
I tell people, especially if you've PCS'd, how long, were you in the military?
Oh, yes. 20 years in a month.
I thought I remember. Who's counting?
Between 71 and 91. So, yeah, that's where the gray hair came in.
Yeah, so speaking of hair, when you would PCS, how long would it take you to find someone you'd trust to cut those beautiful flowing locks?
A long time, believe me. That's why I carry a card with me. So it's done the way I want it, because I'm the one that's got to walk around with it. But I digress.
Right. So how hard do you think it is to find someone you're willing to talk to about these very personal, vulnerable matters?
Right.
You might go to someone, hey, you might come to me, and it's nice enough, but I don't know if I match with her. I don't know if I want to talk to her. That's okay. I'll help you find someone else. Or let's say you're going to someone on base and you're like, man, it's just not working out for me, but I'm reluctant to talk to them. Then maybe I can talk it out with you. We can come up with a plan. We could kind of role play how you might discuss this with a provider.
Sure.
Because you're not always going to gel with the first person you see. So sometimes it really is about having options.
Very, very good. Now, Dr. Swank, given the inherent stressors of working in law enforcement, including the potential to be put in harm's way, what are some of the more common situations you're asked to address for not only our agents, but everyone in the OSI community?
I'm glad you open it up to everyone because, everyone who works in this field is exposed to potentially traumatizing material. If it's something left on the copy machine, child porn left on the copy machine or the fax.
Right.
If it's our digital forensic examiners who never know what's coming through on the next hard drive.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is so psychologically toxic. It's like it burns into your retinas and you can't unsee that.
Yeah.
And so some groups simply benefit from a regular check-in, being able to kind of clear out that mental closet of things that build up, and you can talk about them, set them aside. Because some people will say, oh yeah, I'm able to talk with my spouse, or I'm able to talk with my teammates. But some people say, Doc, I don't even want to talk about this stuff with my spouse. I don't want them exposed to this kind of thing.
Sure.
And sometimes the spouses will say, I can't hear any more of that. That gave me nightmares for weeks.
Right.
So
that makes it a
makes
tougher situation then.
Yeah, and it makes total sense. So I, over the years, have developed the ability, it's kind of like water off a duck's back. Similar to people in law enforcement.
Yeah.
People, agents, professional staff, intelligence analysts are often exposed to a lot of material, and we have to learn how to not take that on and not take that home, so to speak. Because of confidentiality, can't really discuss anything specific, and I know that's not what you're asking for.
Right.
And of course, when you take that oath as a government employee or take that oath as a military member, they give you the creds, they give you your papers. They certainly don't say, here, give me all your life stresses. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. They're not
Right?
exchanging one for the other there.
Yeah, either that or I missed that part of the onboarding process where they said, hey, turn in your stressors here. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right.
But they're just, whether it's parenting, whether it's, the generation now, a lot of people are taking care of their parents now and the stressors that come along with that. Moving, making new friends, and sometimes it really is just difficulties within the workplace. How do I deal with a supervisor who I might not be getting along with, or how do I deal with a colleague who I feel like is undermining me? How do I navigate some of those conversations and those dynamics? And so but again, it runs the gamut, because it could even be, wow, I'm kind of new to this and I'm trying to figure out, how do I tweak my time management? How do I tweak my organization? And something is, as I say, simple, but something like that. It could even be, I like to say, think of me as the Dr. Phil of OSI.
Okay.
If you're single, you want some dating advice, hey, call me up. We'll talk about, look, I'm an agent and I play someone else online. I don't trust people online. okay, well, let's look at some other options near you for meeting people and, kind of thinking outside the box of creating the social life that you want without having to give that up for your occupational life. So it really kind of is it's a balance. It's awesome. Something new comes through the door, I feel like, every time.
I bet. Now, Doctor, let's shift gears to that elephant in the room that we're going to talk about, the new normal, quote unquote, of COVID-19. How has the pandemic changed or altered the way you assist members of this command?
Well, I'll tell you, Wayne, I did not know really what Zoom was before March.
We know now.
Yes, unfortunately, whether I want to or not. Right now, there's a whole new Zoom Gov.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know what Zoom was back prior to this in the mental health field. Text and email fairly anathema, because we really want to make sure to protect confidentiality. We want to make sure to protect people's privacy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a virtual office through a service called doxy.me, doxy.me, which is HIPAA compliant, allows me to interact with people. Now that doesn't prevent, me from using things like Zoom or FaceTime
Sure.
if necessary,
Sure.
but really you can't discuss PHI and even sensitive PII over those modalities.
Now, again, for those new to those particular terms, what do they stand for again?
Protected health information
Okay.
and
PII.
personally identifiable information,
Okay.
PII.
Right.
All that stuff you don't necessarily want people, finding out because they happen along some link somewhere. I don't even understand the technology of it, to be honest with you.
But it's there and it's available. So.
Yes. And we've been doing webinars, which again is a new thing for me. I kind of dabbled with webinars in 2018 when I put on a series about mindfulness.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hit or miss, so I put the archives up on MillTube and then kind of set that aside for the time being. So launched back into the webinars, and it's been a learning curve.
Sure.
But we're going to
But
keep
it's well
doing
worth it,
that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. And the feedback we get is, so we would do in-person things here at headquarters, but the only time I would do this kind of stuff for the field was if I did a site visit, a field office visit.
Right.
So it's been really great to get in touch with people out in the field over the webinars.
Very good. Dr. Swank, from your perspective, how has the coronavirus impacted OSI's ability to be resilient, in your view?
Most of my work has been in the government, over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, seeing how quickly this moved and how quickly the organization maneuvered around it and maintained its viability blew me away.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. So one week we were kind of talking hypothetically. One day we tested the system here at headquarters, right?
Yeah.
The day that we'll live in infamy. No. But then the next week, we were all working from home, and that went on for some time. And to see that really didn't stop things, I kind of wondered, is it going to be like a DC snowstorm? Are we going to be stopped in our tracks forever?
Right.
And it worked out okay. I certainly can't speak for everyone. When it comes to resilience, some people are struggling. I know all of us are struggling in some way or another, because it's a different situation for every one of us.
And we're all human.
Right.
So.
Right. And some of us have the stressors of being shut in with our family. Some of us have the stressor of being shut in alone. And some people might have been struggling with problems like drinking before this, and COVID just made it worse. When the only thing's open is the liquor store and the bar, you're only human, right?
Sure.
But the most resilient people are the ones who kind of take note of that, acknowledge it, and then reach out, either to their supervisors or to a colleague, or directly to EAP, whether it's through me, Military One Source, and say, hey, I want to work on this. I could use some help with this.
Yeah, very good. To dovetail on that, Dr. Swank, what is your overall assessment on how the command has responded in light of the COVID-19 challenge? From what you just said, it sounds like you're very encouraged by overall the way folks have been able to bounce back.
I am. I do worry as this sort of drags on. I'm probably one of those that was in the camp of, so when we started working from home in March, I'm thinking, okay, it'll be a week. After a week, I'm like, okay, it'll just be another week.
Right.
Okay,
right.
definitely by the summer, we're going to be back.
Yeah.
And now here it is, we're coming up on 2021. And they've just sort of reinvigorated the importance of maximizing working from home. So it's like, will this ever end? Right? So I do worry because I think people start to question, am I working effectively with these restrictions and in this new environment? You know, are we able to meet the mission that, you know, we took this job to meet? Are we able to serve justice? Are we able to catch the bad guys? You know, but I have been...
And those are high expectations.
Yes, because they're underground too, right?
Yeah,
They're at home now, working from home. And I think that's going to continue to be a challenge, but I've really been heartened to see how agile people have been and how creative. Just with the stories that you write and that come out from your office about the way people are doing things and getting around, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, it is, and you know, thanks for the kind words about the stories. But again, when you have the kind of subject matter like you just said, that just makes everyone smile. I mean, to do the kind of job that the folks in this organization do, whether it be a special agent or a professional staffer. Everyone seems to have stepped up their game another notch to overcome this, and so it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully it'll be sooner than later when COVID finally does come to its end. But during the pandemic, Doctor, you reached out to the command through a variety of webinars, Zoom meetings, as you mentioned, meditation sessions, etc., to facilitate their wellness. How noticeable of an impact have these online tools had on OSI folks with regard to positive feedback?
You know, I don't always get a lot of feedback, but the feedback that I have gotten is, hey, it's great to get this in the field. Thank you for this. A lot of times I'll get feedback that says, wow, this is so timely. You know, recently I did a thing through the FBI on dealing with loss over the holidays, and it both in the course of that talk and then before and after that had people reaching out, yeah, this is really tough. It is really tough because I've had a loss or my family's had a loss. And the social distancing of COVID really leaves people feeling more alone than ever.
Wow.
Like, wow, I must be the only one going through this. And then the holidays with these expectations and these wonderful Hallmark movies and everything really intensifies that.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes the webinars and meditations help people feel linked in. I know some people have expressed that they have used this opportunity to start new resilience habits.
Okay.
I think people who might never have meditated before have been willing to try it.
Yeah.
Maybe with some trepidation, they have admitted that sometimes they join so that they can get a good nap, but I don't judge. In fact, I say, I hang up the call, so if you fall asleep, you don't have to worry. There will not be an open mic. I turn that puppy right off.
Well, at least they're making the effort to try to participate, and that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. When I started meditating, I always practiced at night because I wanted to fall asleep.
Your timing's impeccable, right?
Now I'm next level. I do it at work, and sometimes I wake up when my lunch break's over.
Okay. Moving on, Dr. Swank, you mentioned articles that we've been writing out of public affairs during COVID-19. One of the earlier ones that we turned out back in March of 2020, dealing with the various programs that are coming out of your office to help people deal with the lockdown at the time when COVID-19 first became the new norm, quote unquote. And I'm quoting here from what you said in the article. You said, quote, "The bright side of the operational slowing created by the current issues is that there is time that can be devoted to working through stress and personal issues. The internal work can strengthen foundations for the mental toughness necessary for law enforcement and counterintelligence work." Now, when I first read that, I thought, well, gee, it sounds like back then you were seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Is that a fair assessment now, or have things kind of swayed your opinion, almost into 2021?
I think I laugh and smile. People on the podcast won't see that because I'm thinking, yeah, that tunnel turned out to be a lot longer than I thought. But I truly do still think there's a light at the end of it. And, it's like I said earlier, people can get through this with resilience. Resilience is not about never having stressors. Resilience is about growing through the difficult situations. And so you can choose to sit at home and day drink, and whenever we go back to work, you're 50 pounds heavier, your liver hates you, and you're going to go through some tough withdrawal symptoms.
Sure.
Or you can say, all right, how do I take on this challenge? How do I use this time if maybe you have downtime when you're working from home, or if your schedule is such that you only go in on certain hours, maybe use those other hours to stop by Airman Family Readiness. This is that opportunity that I know back when I was active duty, they would always talk about, put in 110%, 24/7, because when the operation slows, when we have downtime, then you'll get to relax. Well, guess what? This might be your downtime.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Use that. Although I know a lot of our hard-charging Type A folks are like, I know I want to get back out there and get to working as hard as I used to work before. I think there still is that opportunity to use it to take a personal inventory and help grow your personal resilience.
Very good words to live by, that's for sure. Doctor, as another year approaches and the uncertainty of how long COVID-19 is going to be around with us, what do you envision the future holding for OSI Employee Assistance Services, both long and short term?
So I am very excited. I think we've got a lot of great things on the horizon for employee assistance. The command has been so incredibly supportive and so acknowledging of the value of this support for the personnel. The Air Force, first time ever, has given XB our very own mental health technician.
Wow.
And not just any mental health technician, but newly promoted to Master Sergeant. So we've got Master Sergeant Martha Dunham, who is now our XB superintendent. And I tell you,
I've seen her name on email traffic, that's for sure.
She is whipping us into shape. She is and so she has been a real godsend, so that it's kind of doubled our EAP service capacity for sure.
Great.
The True North Initiative is going to be getting us a social worker, a couple psychologists, a chaplain, and I know the command is also working on a specific command chaplain.
Right.
And so I foresee a number of resources coming in, which will be great, because I know some people have said, well, I didn't want to reach out because I know you're busy. And I always tell them, hey, I prefer the busyness of interacting with another person to paperwork. So guess what? If I'm not talking to someone, I'm doing paperwork. Please call.
I hear that.
But that is on the horizon. In 2021, although my hope is that as they roll out a vaccine and we kind of get this under control, we get more FaceTime in the office. We're going to continue with the webinar and some of the virtual programming with parenting support, support for individuals living alone during the pandemic, and maybe even support for people with family members with addiction, maybe people going through separation or divorce, which is a major impact for a lot of our folks where family is our support system.
Sure.
So we're really going to work on putting those things out so that they're still available to the field, as well as hopefully in person here at headquarters.
There you go. Finally, Dr. Swank, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want to let people know, hey, if you want to get a hold of us, it's as easy as sending an email, afosi.eap@us.af.mil. And that will go to myself and Sergeant Dunham. And so between the two of us, one of us will get back to you. The other thing I'll throw out, I don't know what your experience has been, but I actually added it as a line on my signature block. If you don't hear from me, if you don't hear back from me within 48 hours, call me. Sometimes emails get lost, whether it gets lost coming to me or my reply gets lost going to you. And there's nothing more frustrating to me than thinking someone is out there thinking, oh, great, not even employee assistance cares, kind of hitting the bottom of the barrel.
Swank, because with so many people doing telework, there has been a strain on just the computer system in
Right.
total. And so that's a very good point.
And so I don't have a problem with folks calling, but it's a great way to start just by emailing that afosi.eap@us.af.mil. And even if it's just a suggestion, like, hey, send someone with a better voice for the podcast, hey, that's fine. I don't take it personally.
Yeah, nothing to worry about, Dr. Swank. believe
I
me.
can't match you, sir, but,
No,
I try.
You've been a great guest, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And thank you, so much for taking time out of your busy schedule with EAS and to share some of your insights that I'm sure are going to help a lot of folks out there in the field.
I hope so. Thank you so much. It's so great to talk with you.
Our guest has been Dr. Margaret Swank, the Chief of the OSI Employee Assistance Services. Doctor, thanks again for taking the time to be with us, and thank all of you for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.